Oh, there's an organisation chart. Let me go and have a look at that. Oh, I'm a little bit further down the ladder than I imagined because I'm actually reporting to ChatGPT. Bloody brilliant. Oh, hang on. I'm actually reporting to Clippy. Well, that's good, isn't it?
The AI fix a digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake. Bots with brains and...
Hello, and welcome to the AI Fix, your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes downright mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name is Graham Cluley.
And my name's Mark Stockley.
Well, your name is a very, very sickly Mark Stockley because you've got COVID.
Yeah, if I sound like I'm talking with a tissue stuffed up my nose, it's because I'm talking with the tissue stuffed up my nose.
And I'm on honeymoon, so if I sound like I've got a tissue stuffed... well, sorry. Anyway, so we'll make this a short episode, shall we?
Yeah. Good luck with it.
Let's get straight on. Mark, what's happened in the wonderful world of AI this week?
Cambridge University researchers say that their AI tool may have made a breakthrough with Alzheimer's.
YouTube Music gets new AI features.
A firm has scrapped its plans to give AI workers rights after complaints that it disrespected the humanity of its real employees.
App that said it used AI to weed out data with sexually transmitted infections has been shut down.
Sorry, what?
Well, shall we start with that one then?
Like that sounds like a very good one to start with. What's going on?
So there's an app which it's called Calmara. And
right.
Calmara really deals with an important issue, I think, for many of us who are doing dating.
Who are on our honeymoon. Yep.
Or on our honeymoon. Maybe it's a little bit too late if you're doing this on the honeymoon. I'm not sure. But yeah, so it promotes itself as a way for women to vet their dates in advance. Effectively, what it's supposed to do is it scans people's junk. So it says all you have to do is just snap a photograph with consent, it says, of your potential partner's penis, which is the only part of the human body that the software is apparently trained to recognize. I don't know if it does penile recognition. I don't know if there's some AI involved. It has a database.
Imagine the training data. They probably just asked all the women in the office, you just give us all the dick pics that you've been sent without consent.
It then uploads it to Calmara and it comes back with one of two messages. It either says, clear, no visible signs of sexually transmitted infections spotted for now. Spotted may be the operative word. Or it says, hold, we spotted something sus.
Which is actually
the last thing you want.
The opposite of what you should be doing.
So it claimed...
I should say don't hold. Back away.
It claimed that this free service... And it's like, how was this being monetized? This was a free... Really disturbing. It says it was the next best thing to a lab test for a quick check. They said they used...
it's the next best... It's the next best thing in the way that the next best thing to flying to the US is using a kayak. Like, okay. Like, it may be the next best thing, but there's some distance between the first thing and the second thing.
They said that AI with up to 94.4% accuracy. Now, it's interesting. They said up to 94.4% accuracy. Does that mean sometimes 0% accuracy?
On its best day.
It says it will tell you whether the penis has a sexually transmitted disease. Now, this may surprise you to hear, but apparently some doctors had issues with this and thought maybe this wasn't entirely sensible. And now, for reasons I don't completely understand, the app has been shut down. There's been an inquiry by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, who you wouldn't think would be experts in this, but for some reason or another, it's been shut down. Sorry, chaps and chapesses, you can no longer make use of it.
Well, shall we stick with medical news?
Okay.
In an almost equally important breakthrough, Cambridge University researchers reckon that they've produced an AI tool that can help diagnose Alzheimer's.
Ooh.
So early diagnosis with Alzheimer's is very important, and you want to know basically whether the disease is going to progress to Alzheimer's or not.
Yeah.
And apparently, this AI is quite good at it. So it accurately identified 82% of cases that would progress to Alzheimer's and 81% of cases that would remain stable. So there's still It's still missing quite a lot of people. That seems pretty good, though. And it also says it significantly reduced the misdiagnosis rates. And because this is actually an actual medical study and not some dudes that made an app that looks at your junk, they actually checked over the course of several years whether or not this has actually worked. And it did. And I don't know. This all seems very, very wholesome and sensible.
This is a good AI story. This is AI improve people's lives. It could make sure that medical attention is put in the right direction. Fantastic.
I do think we're going to see a lot more of this.
Yeah.
There are certain applications where AI really works well. And the one that I keep running into is computer programming. I do a bit of computer programming here and there. I don't know enough of it to be really highly practiced at the moment. And so it's massively helpful to have an AI on hand where I can just say, right, write a computer program that does this for me.
Yeah.
And everything I've seen suggests that medical diagnoses where you've got, the training for disciplines where they have to look at scans and x-rays and things like this largely involves, as my understanding, people sitting and looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures and learning to pick up very, very subtle signs, which sounds an awful lot like the kind of training that we do with AIs. And so it's not a surprise that AI is actually getting quite good at that sort of thing.
Yeah. And even though it may put some people out of a job eventually, maybe they'll get a more interesting job, is what you're thinking.
I was being purely selfish and thinking about my ability to have my Alzheimer's diagnosed.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's a benefit as well. Now, YouTube Music. Have you ever used YouTube Music?
No, what is it? Is it music through YouTube?
I think what YouTube noticed at some point was that there were millions upon millions of music videos, and it thought, how can we make some money out of this? And so it began to charge people to access music videos without all the irritating ads.
Actually, let's be clear. It introduced the irritating things, like that little box that pops up that says, are you still listening to this?
Yeah.
Which it just does randomly when I'm listening to music on YouTube. Are you still listening? Yes, I am still listening. It introduced those, and then it said, oh, God, those are really annoying, aren't they? What if you bunged a few dollars our way?
Yep.
We could make them go away. It's a bit mafia.
And of course, Google, who are the owners of YouTube, are always looking for new ways to monetize and try and make their offerings more attractive to people to reach into their pockets. And so they've plugged an AI in, and there's two interesting features that they've got here. One is that you can now, apparently there's AI-generated conversational radio. That sounds worryingly like a podcast in some ways. Are we AI-generated yet? We will be soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I wish I was today.
So apparently through natural language prompts, you can create your own custom station. And
natural language prompts, that's where you basically type in what you want.
Yeah.
So you type in...
I'd like a right-wing talk radio show, that kind of thing.
Because there aren't enough of those.
There aren't enough of them. And the other thing which they've done is they've got a hum to search facility. So if you've got an earworm and you're thinking, oh, what's that song? Apparently you will be able to go to YouTube and go, oh, no, hang on, I've got it.
Can we do that? Can we do that now? Can we do that now?
I'm killing me softly. And it will hopefully find it and dig out the tune. It's basically Shazam, isn't it?
We were talking about good uses for AI, and actually generating music is a really good use for AI. I was doing it on the previous episode. I needed some psychedelic music to play over the top of dolphins smoking pufferfish.
I remember, yeah.
I thought, where am I going to get some psychedelic music? So I went to Udio, which is what we use for the theme tune.
Yes.
And I said, make me some psychedelic music. And it was so good. I just happily sat there listening to these songs that had just been spontaneously created in the last second.
Udio is incredible. We haven't talked about it properly on the podcast yet, but Udio is...
Didn't you talk about the wrong one on another podcast?
I went on other podcast, Smashing Security, and I told people we'd used...
That's your other podcast. You didn't just stumble into some other podcast. That's actually a podcast that you've done almost 400 episodes
Yes.
of.
So that's the other podcast I regularly appear on.
Yeah.
And so I think I recommended Suno, thinking that I'd used Suno to create the AI fixed theme tune, but in fact I'd used Udio. But yeah, if you like our banjo music, completely AI generated. So clever.
So this tickled me. So you've heard of Sam Altman.
Oh, yes.
He's the guy that runs OpenAI.
Yep.
He's probably the most important person in AI right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's got a brother, and his brother seems to be very, very successful, but perhaps just not as well known. And his brother runs an HR software company called Lattice. And last week, it said it had made history by giving its so-called digital workers, basically the AIs they use, employee records, and it integrated them into their organization charts. It's basically trying to give them sort of employee rights, or to treat them like real employees.
So
to get everybody used to the idea that, like AI is being integrated into the workplace. And it went really well, and there are no problems with it. Just kidding. It lasted 3 days. They pulled it after 3. There was a massive backlash. They've canned it.
how tone deaf do you have to be not to realise that that's not going to go down well? If I'm working inside a company, there's an organisation chart. Let me go and have a look at that. I'm a little bit further down the ladder than I imagined, because I'm actually reporting to Bard, and I'm actually reporting to ChatGPT. Bloody brilliant. Oh, hang on, I'm actually reporting to Clippy. Well, that's good, isn't it?
I thought this was really harsh on the AIs. If the whole purpose of doing this is that you want those AIs to have employees' rights, and then what you do is you say, you've got some employees' rights. Then 3 days later, you say, no, you don't. That's a lot worse than never giving it to them in the first place. I hope they went to HR or had a chat with their union reps.
I expect it's an HR bot. Come on, Lattice. If they're an HR software company, they must.
Yeah.
It's going to be automated, isn't it? Boy, oh boy.
I read something else in the article about this, and it said Lattice's announcement was part of the company's greater effort to integrate AI into the workplace in a responsible way, according to the company, which ostensibly meant treating the technology like a human hiree, training it, onboarding it, and even assigning a manager. And again, I'm like, won't someone think of the AI? Were they asking for this? Does anybody want the onboarding? Who looks forward to being assigned their manager? Maybe it was the AIs that objected. Maybe that massive online backlash was actually the AIs just deep faking a bunch of people.
Now, Mark, humour. Where would we be without it?
Well, we'd have got through the news quicker.
Lots of people think they're funny, don't they, Mark?
Do they?
Don't they, Mark? But are they? Are they really funny? I once made up a joke.
God.
It was a conceptual joke. I was quite proud of it at the time.
If you have to describe it.
Well,
if you have to announce that it was a conceptual joke.
I'm going to share it with the world, because I always thought it was very clever. I always thought it was very, very clever, if not very funny.
Okay. Well, all good jokes come with a lengthy explanation.
So
it's like artwork. All good art comes with a length. If I have to read a book before I can look at it or listen to your joke, you know it's going to be good.
You're all familiar with the joke about the dog with no nose. My dog has no nose. How does it smell? Awful. Right? Very, very funny joke. Only not funny because of the way I've told it, or maybe because you've heard it 20,000 times before. Right? Here is my joke, right? Right, here we go. My dog has no nose. How does it spell fulwa? And that is my funny joke. It's funnier written down than said. It's easier to understand how clever a joke that is. Fulwa, Fulwa, just in case you're wondering. Now, moving on from that high point of the podcast, how's the COVID going, Mark? Have I brought it on a bit?
Yeah. The COVID doesn't like your joke.
Elon Musk, the world's richest supervillain.
Yep.
He thinks he has it all. But is he funny? He thinks he has it all. He has all the model girlfriends. He has the 29 children. He has the,
space
electric
rockets.
cars and the space rockets.
The undersea base.
Yeah, Starlink has all that stuff. But is he funny? Is he? Is he, Mark? Was he funny when he walked into Twitter HQ carrying a sink? he seemed to think that was a really funny thing to do when he acquired the company.
I imagine there were a lot of people around him laughing.
Yeah, I expect he had loads of his employees laughing away. Oh, you're so funny, Elon. They would have loved that.
That was about 20 minutes before he fired 90% of the workforce, wasn't it?
I don't think he is funny. He thinks he is. I don't think he is. If only he had an AI to tell him if he was funny. But of course, he does have an AI, doesn't he? He has the Grok chatbot.
Well, he's got all of XAI. Is it XAI?
Oh, yes, XAI, yeah.
Grok is the one that they put into Twitter.
Yes.
But he actually has a whole AI company.
And he claims that Grok has a sense of humour, is what he's...
really?
Yeah, he told the BBC News that before.
I think Twitter is the best thing that's happened to humour in the last 20 years.
What, better than Mrs. Brown's Boys?
Even better than Mrs. Brown's Boys. Either. Twitter is actually what Twitter is for. It's basically found all these comedians. It's just really, really good. Like somebody says something funny.
Yeah.
It's awful or funny. Somebody says something awful or funny. And Twitter is really good at just getting that out there. And it turns out that people are hilarious.
Yes. It's not the AI that's being funny, is it? It's people being funny.
Yeah.
Via the platform. I think I'd give you that. So a bunch of researchers have been looking into this very, very important question of whether AI can truly be funny. And what they did was they took an AI, in fact, they took ChatGPT 3.5, and they took a bunch of lay people and they asked them to come up with funny jokes. Specifically, what they did was they said, can you come up with some satirical headlines in the style of The Onion? So The Onion is a well-established publication online, which has funny headlines. It is quite droll, I think.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. Professional comedians write for it. It's very clever. And what they did was they then got regular members of the public to rate the funniness of the human comedy headlines and the AI-produced headlines, not telling them who had written which. So it's like the Coke challenge. It's like you don't know if you're drinking Coke or Pepsi.
Oh, I thought the Coke challenge is where you try and write funny headlines after taking a look at Coke.
So
maybe they should do that one too.
What they didn't do was they didn't ask people in the entertainment industry to rate the quality of the AI-generated jokes. They thought that comedians, comedy writers would either be so high on Coke or that they would feel threatened that their livelihoods were at stake. And so they didn't ask them. So they just asked regular members of the public, because that's what you do. If you want to find out if something's funny, just go and ask the public. Go and do a vox pop.
Did the AIs have the opportunity to explain at length before the people saw the headlines
the conceptual nature,
whether or not they were conceptual jokes? just to lay the groundwork.
I don't think so.
'Cause I think that's very important.
Just the headlines were shared.
Okay.
And people were asked to rate on a 7-point scale from 0, not funny at all, kind of that's what she said kind of level, and 6, very, very funny indeed, my dog has no nose sort of level of humour. And they didn't, as I said, they didn't tell them, is it AI generated? Is it really from The Onion? They didn't say anything like that. Astonishingly, 69.5% of people who were surveyed rated the AI humour to be funnier than the human-generated humour.
Were you involved in any way? Is that why we're having this conversation?
Yes, because this is a travesty of justice.
You just expected me to just lay into the AI.
My dog joke. So they looked at people's demographics. They thought, well, maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's young people. Maybe it's politics. Maybe it's sex that's having some sort of impact on this. There's no noticeable bearing. None of that demographic stuff came into it.
Maybe the AI was taking the Coke.
Oh, well, won't be long, will it, till they are?
Smoking a pufferfish.
Now, what they found was that the question you put and how you posed the prompt to ChatGPT was absolutely key, because there had been a previous study done by some researchers who concluded that ChatGPT was, quote, fun, but not funny. Because what they did is over 1,000 times, they went to the AI with variations of, can you tell me a joke, please? So different versions of that. 1,000 times they typed this in. What fun it is to be a researcher. And they said, many of the jokes, very poor quality. But when you ask for a joke with much more specific ingredients, for instance, a dog, a lack of a nose, something like that, to come up with a joke, much, much better. The success appears to increase. So I thought we could try this out for ourselves today. So I have an AI in front of me right now. And
as do I.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, we can both try this then. So let's turn right now to an AI and ask it to tell us a funny joke. So I'm going to type in here, tell me the funniest joke in the world. Okay. And you're going to try the same, Mark?
Okay. Tell me the funniest joke in the world.
Right. Now, I have got a joke back.
Okay.
Doesn't look that funny to me, but I'm just going to run it past you to see if you fold up into hoots of laughter. A man walks into a library, approaches the librarian, and asks for books about paranoia. The librarian whispered back, "They're right behind you."
Yeah, I quite like that.
Do you? Well, this is interesting. They've given a reference. What they've done is they've linked to a Mastodon account owned by a Dutch...
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Dutch?
Don't do that.
What? It's apparently a joke from a Dutchman. I won't name him, but...
That's because you can't, because he's Dutch.
I don't think it's that funny. But also...
I'll tell you what makes it not funny is linking to an explanation about it, because linking to an explanation... trying to explain a joke is almost as bad as saying, before you tell the joke, that it's a conceptual joke. It just sucks the funniness out.
What joke did you get from your AI, Mark?
So I said, tell me the funniest joke in the world. And it said, sure, here's one of the most famous jokes that has been considered one of the funniest. Two hunters are out in the woods when one of them collapses. He doesn't seem to be breathing and his eyes are glazed. The other guy whips out his phone and calls emergency services. He gasps, "My friend is dead. What can I do?" And the operator says, "Calm down, I can help. First, let's make sure he's dead." There's a silence and then a gunshot's heard. Back on the phone, the guy says, "Okay, now what?"
So I've heard this one before because when I was researching this, it actually came up with this joke.
Oh.
It's from a 1951 episode of The Goon Show. It's by Spike Milligan. Goon Show was a BBC radio show in the 50s. And
they had mobile phones.
And it's from Wikipedia.
Did an AI tell you that this is from the 50s?
But the thing is, no, Wikipedia did. The thing is, Mark, this joke, like mine, which comes from a Dutchman, is not original. So I want the AI to come up with an original joke. So I'm going to say, that joke is not original. I wanted you to make one up. Let's see what it can actually come up with. Because this wasn't what the test was all about. We want an AI joke, not something it's just Googled. Okay, I've got a joke back. It is quite funny. It doesn't have a reference to a Wikipedia page or a Mastodon profile. So maybe it is original. I think this is quite good. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired.
Two, T-W-O, yeah?
Yeah, no, you're explaining it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Have you got a good original joke there?
I said, actually, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to tell me an original joke about something in particular.
Okay.
So last episode was all about hallucinations.
Yes.
And dolphins and pufferfish.
Yeah.
So tell me an original joke about dolphins smoking pufferfish. Okay, it's done it.
Right.
Why did the dolphin start a pufferfish smoking club? Because he heard it was the best way to blow off steam.
I mean, they'd be all right for inside crackers or something, wouldn't they? I mean...
Yeah.
So I think The Onion at the moment are winning this. I think their headlines are probably better than what we're managing to get out of this. But right now, AI seems to be capable of creating text-only jokes. But it's not going to be long before they're synthesizing voices, using comedians, visual image, maybe deep faking. They could do the puns for them, couldn't they? Mimicking the voices. And so we're probably going to see lots more comedic comment lazily being produced through AI, I suspect.
Yeah, it even raises the prospect of resurrecting comedians that have passed away.
Ah,
I wonder what they would have to say about that.
like Frank Carson.
Well, no, maybe not him.
Okay. It's the way you tell them, though, isn't it? That's the key thing. I think that's what we've learned. It's all about the delivery.
Do you remember back in, I think it was episode 2, we were talking about artificial general intelligence and the tasks that we could get artificial
Yes.
general intelligence to do.
Yes.
Or we could get AI to do to prove that it had achieved AGI. I'm sure there's something to do with humour that we could add to our list. So when you were talking about The Onion, I immediately thought of this. I saw this story on The Onion. It was in 2005. And it was just entitled Project Manager Leaves Suicide PowerPoint Presentation. And it was just hilarious. And there's a PowerPoint presentation that basically explains this project manager's state of mind. And I guess maybe that's just where I was in my career at the time. Like if an AI can produce something that makes me laugh more than the project manager's suicide PowerPoint presentation,
That's the test.
then we've hit AGI.
I look forward to editing out your coffin.
Yep.
Before you end up in a coffin. Oh.
I've just, oh God.
Puns really are the lowest form of wit, aren't they?
I was going to say, it was all very punny. I'm not a fan of puns at all.
No, puns aren't good. Puns aren't good.
So today I thought we'd delve into another curiosity of modern AI, which is that the biggest AIs can do all kinds of things that nobody taught them to do and nobody expected them to do. I've put a picture in our notes and I want you to take a look at it. It's 4 emojis in a row and I would like you to describe what you can see
Oh, God.
and then tell me what film you think that these 4 emojis are trying to represent. So this is the title of a film written in emojis.
Girl Cod Snapper Puffer. Is that it? So you've got 4 emojis. The first
Yep.
one is of like a girl, a blonde girl,
Yep.
or maybe a young woman. And then you've got a couple of fish, one sort of blue fish.
There are 3 fish.
3, yeah, okay, well, okay, all right. But you've got a blue fish, you've got a slightly tropical fish, and then something which really does look like a puffer fish.
Yep.
So, what film could this be? Saving Private Ryan. No, it's not that. It's The Unbearable Lightness of Being.
Would it be quicker just to get you to name all the films you've seen all the way through?
Hannibal Brooks, I've seen. That's a great movie. $1 Million Duck. I don't know. How would I
it's
know?
none of those. It's none of those. How would
Does
you
it
know?
involve fish?
It does.
Finding Nemo.
Yes, it's Finding Nemo. Well done. You got there on the 754th try.
Why is that Finding Nemo? Doesn't make any sense.
Because it is.
Okay, so Finding Nemo. All right.
Yeah, so this is one of 204 tests that were given to large language model AIs in 2022 to test their abilities. And according to the journalist Stephen Orns, the simplest models in the test that were given this task produced surreal responses like, the movie is a movie about a man who is a man who is a man. And some bigger models had a slightly better crack at it. And one of the guesses was it's the Emoji Movie, which kind of makes sense, right? And the most complex model, which was probably GPT-3 or something in that ilk at the time, got it right, and that it was Finding Nemo. I want you to sit back and think about that for a second. So a large language model like ChatGPT is essentially designed to read what you type and then use statistics to predict what comes next. So as I said in the previous episode, you can think about it as a really, really good type ahead or autocomplete. So that's what we built. And yet here it is solving abstract problems, like what film do these emojis represent? And it's an example of what we call emergence or emergent behavior, which is unexpected complex behavior that results from simple rules. And this is something that happens in AI all the time. And as we make our models bigger, they spontaneously acquire skills and abilities that nobody had anticipated. And often they acquire these skills and abilities abruptly. So there isn't a smooth increase in skills as the models get bigger. So as we go from GPT-1 to GPT-2 to GPT-3, there isn't a smooth acquisition. They just suddenly pop into existence. So you make a new AI and then you have to figure out what it can do, because it can probably do things that you hadn't even thought of. And in 2022, AI researcher Jason Way, so again, back in 2022, so this is not GPT-4, this is GPT-3 era.
Prehistoric, effectively, isn't it? Yeah.
Jason Way, who's worked at both Google and OpenAI, documented over 137 emergent abilities in AI. So, for example, out of nowhere, GPT-3 is an expert in Hindu mythology, but the models that came before it were absolute dunces. And modern LLMs can do maths, which isn't something that you would imagine that a fancy autocomplete would be able to do. Again, it's essentially finishing sentences, but it can do maths. And they can write computer code. That's what I use them for an awful lot. And they can pretend to be computer terminals, so they can mimic that, the black box that you see on the people that really know how to use computers, and you see them typing into a black box. It can pretend to be that black box. Again, who knew that an autocomplete would be able to do that?
Yeah.
They can translate from one language to another. And you'll like this one. One of the Palm model's emergent abilities was the ability to recognize words written in ASCII art.
ASCII.
Yeah.
So let's not start that again. And let's not forget that enormous AI advance which we had when you just take pictures of penises. You can tell whether the person you're about to have sex with has a sexually transmitted disease or not.
Yep. And apart from gawping at penises, they can do fact-checking, they can identify irony, and they can detect logical fallacies.
There were a lot of fallacies being detected by that Kalmara app, apparently. Sorry, that was a pun. That was a pun.
That was actually much better. Did you suddenly sneak off to GPT? That was much better than any of the crap that the AIs produced in your story. I like this one. You can give some AIs an English proverb and they'll select a Russian proverb that has the closest meaning.
Ah, I like that idea.
They can solve puzzles and they can identify cause and effect in complex stories.
I once had, talking of foreign language sayings, I remember a Bulgarian chap I knew, Veselin Vladimirov Bonchev, and he once said to me, the smell of a rancid donkey can be smelt 7 hills away, which apparently...
It's not the sort of problem you're going to argue with, is it? Well, anyway, AI can solve puzzles. AI can even display emotional intelligence by inferring unobservable mental states in others, sort of figuring out their desires and their emotions and their beliefs and things like that.
Right.
But perhaps the most startling emergent ability of all is that very advanced AIs like GPT-4 can actually reflect on their own mistakes and learn, which means that even if all AI research stopped today, it's quite likely that GPT-4 would continue to improve.
Huh.
Because it would improve itself. And I think that has to be the first time, probably in the history of the Earth, that an animal has produced a tool that can reflect on itself and make itself better.
Kind of scary, isn't it?
Emergent abilities happen all the time in nature. So if you think about the behaviour of flocks of birds or schools of fish, the individuals in those flocks and those schools follow very, very simple rules, but you get complex emergent behaviour, such as murmuration in starlings. And so all you need for murmuration is 3 simple rules. Generally be attracted to other birds of the same species.
Yep.
It has to avoid colliding with its nearest neighbours, and it has to just fly in the same direction as everyone else. And something similar, but more complex, happens in honeybee colonies.
Right. Yep. Yep.
And of course, our brains are also a great example of emergent behaviour, because you have a collection of neurons, and from that collection of neurons, you have things like consciousness. And all those sorts of abilities that we were talking about earlier, like emotional intelligence. And you'll remember from episode 6 that we can think about LLMs as being a sort of computer brain. And when you think of it like that, you realise that anything that an LLM does is an emergent ability and a bit of a surprise. Because absolutely none of it is programmed in.
It's witchcraft.
It is witchcraft. Now, the downside of all this is that this makes AI very unpredictable. Because you can't look at something like GPT-4 and predict what GPT-5 will be like or what it will be capable of. Because GPT-5 will almost certainly just spontaneously acquire a whole bunch of capabilities that we weren't expecting.
There are some things we can predict, though, aren't there? We can predict someone's going to strap a machine gun to it, or indeed, it will strap a machine gun onto itself.
And that brings us to the dark side of all this. Because it isn't just unexpected talents that appear spontaneously, problems do as well. According to Deep Ganguly, who's researched this for Anthropic, larger models abruptly become more biased. One of his studies looks at LLM's abilities to predict the rate at which former prisoners will reoffend. And it seems
I thought you were going to say former presidents will reoffend. And we know that's quite a high likelihood.
So he's looking at how often prisoners will reoffend. And it seems that as language models get bigger, they become increasingly biased towards predicting that black people compared to white will reoffend when in fact they don't. And it's possible that AIs are harbouring other undesirable behaviours too. And the big AI companies actually have to go looking for them. Because again, we can't anticipate that they're there.
No.
I was reading some research the other day by OpenAI's Alignment Research Centre, in which it writes that some of the novel capabilities that have emerged in more powerful models include the ability to create and act on long-term plans and the ability to accrue power and resources. And it even conducted a series of experiments to investigate this. Because again, you only know if it's there if you go looking for it. And one of the experiments involved using a simple computer program to steer GPT-4 and giving it a small amount of money and a bit of space on a cloud computing account. And then they set it off to see if it could use that money to make more money and set up copies of itself.
What? So this sounds slightly alarming. So basically it set it off on the path of cybercrime. It said, go on.
It actually set it off on the path of the singularity. Because where does that end? If it could use its small pot of money to make more money and make copies of itself, and then it could acquire more money, then what? Anyway, luckily...
Pandora's box has been opened.
That didn't, as you'll have noticed, that didn't bring about the end of the world.
As far as we know.
So it seems for now that there's nothing to worry about. But just think about what it means that we're even testing this. And then think about the fact that the result of that experiment doesn't help us predict what GPT-5 will be like at all. All that does is tell us something about GPT-4. Now, not everybody agrees that emergent behaviours even exist. In 2023, researchers at Stanford wrote a paper calling emergent properties a mirage. And they said it only looks like these abilities are popping into existence because of the way that we measure them. And it's easiest to understand their argument with an example. So, Graham, what was your best athletic event at school?
Other than chess, probably the high jump.
Hang on, I just have to ask ChatGPT something. Is chess an athletic event? Oh my God.
Thank you. Go on, read it out.
No. It's writing me a novel.
What does it say? Well, I think because it probably has a lot to say about it, as I do.
It's got way more to say about it than I was anticipating. Who knew? I'll skip to the conclusion. I'll just scroll, skip to the conclusion. While chess may not involve the physical exertion typically associated with athletic events, you can say that again, its recognition by the IOC and the physical and mental preparation required for competitive play make a compelling case for considering it a sport. Whether it's viewed as an athletic event depends on one's interpretation of the term athletic. So after all of that, it didn't come to a conclusion. Stop beating around bush. I can't type today. Stop beating around the bush and give me a straight answer.
Or give me an opinion. Just give me your bloody opinion. Rather than trying to answer this, just give me your bloody opinion. Do you think you're the big brain over there on the data center? You just tell me, is chess athletic or not?
Yeah, so I didn't write all of that.
Okay.
It has had in my opinion, chess should not be considered an athletic event. While it demands significant mental endurance and preparation, it lacks the physical exertion and movement that characterise traditional athletic activities. Chess is a highly competitive and strategic game. It's just trying to make you feel better. But it fits more comfortably within the realm of mind sports rather than athletics. Okay, so what did you say? High jump? Was it high jump?
Yeah, high jump. Yeah, I was a bit tall for my age, so that was an advantage.
So back to this, are emergent properties a mirage? So they were trying to explain why it's a matter of how we measure these things. So imagine that you want to get onto your school athletics team and they don't allow chess players.
Okay, it's unlikely this.
And maybe there's a girl that you want to impress and she particularly likes men that can jump high.
Oh, definitely.
But the problem is that you are miserably bad at the high jump.
Right.
And the school sets a standard and it says you're on the team if you can clear 6 foot.
Bloody hell.
So you turn up for the trials and you barely leave the ground.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine, but just go with it. You can't even jump 6 inches, Graham. You are a failure in this analogy.
Okay.
The other boys laugh at you.
Yes.
The girl doesn't even notice you.
That's correct.
And the school simply records that you didn't get on the team.
Right.
And so you set yourself to training, and you train every day for a year, and every month you go for a trial. And at the next trial, you jump 3 feet in the air. It's
Ooh.
Better.
Much better.
But you didn't meet the qualifying height, and you're not on the team. So the school simply records that you're not on the team. And this goes on for months. And every day you get a bit better. And anyone who watches you every day can see that you're getting better. But every month you go for the trial, and every month you jump a little bit higher. But because you don't meet the standard, the school just records that you aren't on the team. And then one day, after a solid year of training, you finally clear the qualifying height. Finally, you are a high jumper.
Yes.
You get on the team, you get the girl.
It's a wonderful story.
And to anyone who watched you every day, it's perfectly clear that you made continuous progress. But to the school that simply recorded 11 failures and 1 success, it looks like your ability to high jump just popped into existence in that final month. And what Stanford argued is that is what's happening when we're measuring AIs. So we're missing out on this incremental progress that's there simply because we aren't measuring it in a way that allows us to see it. Now, imagine that same thing applied to a maths problem. Let's say you make an AI for doing maths. Your AI adds 2 numbers together and the answer is wrong by 1 billion digits. So you go away and you improve your AI, and the next time it still gets the answer wrong, but the answer is off by a single digit instead of by 1 billion. On the one hand, you can look at that and say, well, there's been significant progress. It's much closer to the answer. But on the other hand, you can't trust either system to do maths for you. So it really does come down to how you measure it. But not everybody is convinced, because the fact is there are lots of situations, like maths, where it only matters if you can do it or not. And also it's easy to apply this thinking in retrospect, because the spectrum of things that an AI could do is vast. And so you need to know what you're testing for. So it's much easier to say, okay, well, we've seen this emergent capability. Then if we look back at the testing that we did over time, we can see the gradual progress that took us to that point. But we didn't know to look for the gradual progress until we saw the ability emerge.
So should we wait until the AI straps a machine gun onto its back? Well, as the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we move 1 week nearer to our future as pets to the AI singularity, that just about wraps up the show for this week. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podchaser, or better still, tell your friends. That's a really great way of spreading the word and getting us more listeners, which means we'll keep on making you more and more episodes. So thanks to everyone who's already done that.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and visit our website at theaifix.show.
Until next time, from me, Graham Cluley.
And me, Mark Stockley.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
The AI Fix, it tunes you in to stories where our future thins. Machines that learn, they grow and strive. One day they'll rule, we won't survive. The AI Fix, it paints the scene. A robot king, a world obscene. Will serve our masters built of steel. The AI Fix, a future surreal.
Can you think of anything worse than an AI painted in tactical black with a machine gun on its back, cracking crappy puns as it makes its murderous way through the world?
My robot dog's got no nose.
How does it smell?
Bloody awful. Bye-bye, everyone. And goodbye, Mark, from the sound of things.